really want to work with people that you align with on a personal level and also values. I mean, the good thing is there are plenty of online platforms like Wedshed, I have to say, that have done the job, like I guess the work for you and brought together some great ones. But also asking your wedding venue or other vendors that you're working with who they would recommend that you work with is really helpful, because they're only ever going to recommend people who, I guess, whose brands align with theirs and who they think are doing a really good job, because it's in their best interest to, you know, make sure that they're partnering with great people as well for their couples.
They have such great networks. Another thing would be to jump on Instagram and get your internet sleuth hat on. You know, venues and vendors are always putting up content and tagging each other, so there's this great network effect, and you can just, you know, get in a little internet rabbit hole and start with the venue, and then from there you'll be like, oh, this photographer's amazing, and then they're tagging a florist, and yeah, the rest is history. Lots. We all do.
I think one of the ones that we see quite commonly, and it's completely understandable and relatable, is that couples will often opt to choose a venue or a vendor based on price alone, and not necessarily on other things that are probably more important factors, like their experience level, whether their work actually is completely like in line with the vision that you have, and also whether you guys gel as people and as basic humans, because you are spending a lot of time with them, right?
Yeah, that's a fun one.
It is.
What was yours? What was your priority?
Probably photographer, I'd say. I think when it comes to navigating like what's your priority, it's something you've got to be super conscious about, and something that we advocate all couples to do at the very beginning or even toward the end of their wedding planning process is to stop and do we call it a wine and wedding priorities exercise, but you can do it with scotch, tea, coffee, water, it doesn't matter. But sit down together, write down the 5 things that are most important to you both separately, then come together, share those things and see what is, you know, aligned with each other. Those things that you both agree on that are most important, that's where your budget should go, and they're the wedding vendors or the venue that you should focus most of your time and energy in making sure you get them right. And that's where you should put your money into as well, because you could spend your wedding budget on a billion different things, right? And it can just spiral out of control. But at least if you're spending on stuff that matters to you and the vendors that matter to you, you're going to walk away from the wedding making it really personal and have no regrets at the end of the day. It's a really good question, and I feel like ideally it doesn't change. You nut that stuff down at the start, and so that comes from really being conscious and thinking, like, what's actually important to us? How do we like to celebrate? Do we love having like a big bougie party, or do we just want to do something low key in our backyard? Is that where we're most comfortable, having like, you know, a relaxed barbecue or something? And so ideally you kind of got your personalities ingrained into the structure and the whole kind of vision for your day from the very beginning. And that's way you're going to make all the decisions that follow based on what's actually important to you, and you don't feel like you walk away and you've kind of wasted money, or you've had this celebration that actually wasn't a reflection to you.
Yeah, if you always have that as, you know, something that you've got in the back of your mind always, you'll never walk away with any regrets. And I think that's so important, because the worst thing you can do is get married and then be constantly thinking about, oh, we shouldn't have done this, we shouldn't have done that. So always having that in the back of your mind is so important, who you truly are.
And we've got, you know, we're all different individuals, we've all got different personalities, so if you can both inject a little bit of something that's important to you, then your friends and family will be able to see something and be like, oh, that's so Mel, oh, that's so Amy, and, you know, it kind of becomes this like more personal experience for all your guests that are there as well. Boring but important is, I think the biggest thing is to be realistic, right? So what we see is so many couples are like, okay, what's our wedding budget? And we just throw out a random number, and that sounds good. And it's a surefire way to set yourself up for disappointment. So rather than just plucking a number that kind of sounds good in theory, it's better to focus on what are the non-negotiables for our wedding, like what's really important to us. Cost those out so you know what you're up for at a bare minimum, and know that everything else is a nice to have. And if you've got money to spend on those things, fantastic. And if you don't, then okay, well, if that's how much these things cost, what's a length of time that we can actually save enough money to be able to afford to have that wedding? because, you know, there's nothing more unromantic than unsecured debt, and we all want to walk into our married lives feeling, you know, good and confident about the life that's ahead and not having to focus on, you know, what we've just done and feeling any regret over it.
That's right, and the good news is we have tons of resources that you can access via Wedshed. So visit that store, and we have this beautiful spreadsheet that I created where you can compare different vendors and the pros and cons of each, and I've actually created an amazing formula that'll do that little tricky thing you're talking about, how many weeks leading up to the
You're
day.
an Excel whiz. Excel wizard. I think underestimating costs of certain things as well. So we all sort of assume that we know what food and drink and flowers and things like that cost, but when you're putting it on scale for, you know, a great number of people, those costs, you know, expand, and it can be a surprise for people, even though they are like, you know, let's say wedding vendors, we're not rolling around in Teslas or Ferraris, okay? So they're fair costs for the work that's put into it, but it can be a shock when you've just started planning to kind of recognise what those costs are. I think another thing that catches people out is the cost of travel as well. We're big advocates for trying to book vendors that are local to where you're getting married. Not only does it help the local community and build up that sort of regional economy, but it also will save you heaps of money, because you're not going to have to spend on helping someone, you know, pay for their petrol to get out there and to accommodating them as well.
Look, I really think it comes down to the day and what you want to be doing. And I think, you know, a lot of people think that they want to do the whole DIY thing, but in reality, it's a lot of work. And, you know, this can probably help you choose the type of venue you want and how involved that venue is. So let's say you're going to like a hall and you're in love with it and it's like, great, it's like, I'm going to do the DIY thing, but do you really want to be lugging in, you know, carts of beer and like cartons of beer, as well as like you'll end up asking Aunt Jude and your cousin Libby, I don't know where these names came from. Yeah, you know, you don't want to be putting all this pressure on your family, and that's fine too if you do, but the reality is you're going to have to get help, and that's where wedding planners are so fantastic, as you can get them for the entire planning process, or they can just be there on the day. So think about you, think about what you want to be doing on the day, and that'll really form the decision on whether you want a wedding planner or not.
Yeah, I think so. It probably comes down to being self-aware, like, are you an organised person by nature? If not, then it pays to bring in the professionals to do a professional job. Like, there's a reason that wedding planning is a profession, because putting on parties is it's a big commitment, and I think anyone that's getting married understands that once they've sort of started scratching the surface of it. So yeah, it's being self-aware enough to be like, okay, do I actually want to be doing this? Am I an organised human? Do I need help? Do I have a creative vision for this? Can I be stuffed as well?
But even if you're super organised and you love that part of it, you'll appreciate all the work that goes into it and why a wedding planner is so good, and that way you can focus on the relationships and all the other parts that, you know, happen during a wedding, and they can focus on that and you can just watch the goodness unfold.
I think it comes down to being pretty clear with your communication up front, and they'll work collaboratively with you. They know what questions to ask to kind of get to the nuts and bolts of what's actually important to you. So just trust in their process, and know that as soon as you've kind of shared what's important to you, they've got your best interests at heart, and they want to make sure that it's an awesome day for you.
Yeah, they're absolute magicians, and on the day they just work their magic, like J-Lo in that wedding planner movie where they just go around the background and feed your dad lines. That doesn't actually happen, but
I still haven't seen that movie.
Oh, girlfriend.
I know. It's like,
Blasphemy, we're in the wedding industry.
shame. Idea of where you want to get married, so at least you can kind of be searching within a certain vicinity of a location, and to step back from that, it's about figuring out, do we want to get married locally in our hometown, or do we want to get married at a destination, make more of a full weekend of it? And that could be influenced by your family. Are they willing to travel? Are they able to travel as well? as well as your budget. That's obviously going to come into play. If you do decide to choose a destination venue, you know, what's happening in the region on the dates that the venue is available as well. So for example, you always want to be checking, a tip that we have is to always be checking the local tourism website to make sure that you aren't getting married on the biggest event day of the year at that particular venue as well.
As well as the weather. Like the weather is super important. So you might be like, I want to get married in Mudgee in January, like this crazy lady over here. But in reality, like it's hot, it's really hot, and there's like crazy storms. So you've got to always think about that. And the good thing, you know, today's world with the climate, and another little money saver tip that I'm going to just sneak in here is that you could focus on midweek and off season, because it's so beautiful off season and you don't have the concern about crazy weather as well. That is tough.
I don't reckon you
I feel
can
like
go
you might
wrong here.
switch. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong. I think just start wherever the gut is telling you to start. And if you have this, you've always had this vision for your wedding day, start there. And then realities of like what you can actually achieve might switch to then location. But if it's location, then if you've always dreamed of like a Byron wedding, you know, start searching those venues, and then you'll get to see that there's tons of different options out there.
I don't think you can go wrong there. It depends how vision-led you actually are, or how location aligned you are as well. So whichever comes first.
And
chicken or egg? It's actually the impossible question.
Yeah. And again, like, don't be afraid to lean on vendors that if you've fallen in love with a photographer, reach out to them, tell them your vision, because they've probably shot at, 15 different venues in the last 15 weeks and might, be on the pulse.
Something that catches couples is the vows and the speech, because it's something that you don't really think about until you're getting quite close to the actual wedding day. I mean, so many of us face or suffer from public speaking nerves. And I guess the other thing is there's so much pressure on saying words that are really, they feel like it's a really important moment to share stuff that's from the heart. And to that, we've created a vow writing guide, a speech writing workshop that you can access via Wedshed that take you through literally how to craft a really personal, heartfelt wedding speech or vows, so you're not having to Google and just spill out something that's really generic and actually doesn't speak to you guys.
Yeah, it's got loads of different templates. In addition to that, I think the other, we get hit up on our DMs all the time, it would be just the family dynamics. I think a lot of couples don't realise that a lot of people have opinions when you're getting married, and it's like, how do you navigate all those family relationships? We've created an entire resource it's like a wedding planning membership that you can join, and we've created a whole chapter just navigating this particular thing. And we've also got a Facebook group called Wedshed by Wedshed, which has got 15,000 couples in it, and everyone helps each other. So it's this lovely community. If there's a question that you've got, it's been answered in that. Band. Suit. Video. Sorry. Oh my God, video. I don't know. Improvise.
Improv. Oh my God.
Sentimental.
Not a 21st. Sentimental.